Hello and welcome to the show On the Spot. My name is Patricia Kamara. Tonight, we talk matters accountability. Issues of integrity in Uganda are very serious, or lack of it. When you talk to many people, they'll tell you there's a lot of hemorrhage of public resources. In fact, when you look at President Yoweri Museveni's 10-point program, almost 40 years ago, point number 7 was talking about fighting corruption. And because of that, government put up many institutions mandated to fight graft. And they have covered some distance. And so tonight, we'll be asking, is the war on corruption being won? And my guest on this show is Dr. Patricia Ochan Okiria, Deputy Inspector General of Government. Dr. Okiria, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Good evening.
Good evening, and I'm very happy to be part of this conversation where we delve into significant issues of accountability touching on governance in our country.
A lot of money is given out, appropriated by Parliament. When you look into the books of audited books of the Auditor General, there are always queries about money that is being diverted. Money that should be used for service delivery sometimes is used for personal gain, illegally. You are the ombudsman, person who is supposed to mandated to fight graft and make sure that money meant for service delivery is actually done what is it meant for. When you look back into your work and where you stand right now, you really see that as a country, as institutions, we are winning the battle against corruption?
Well, it's a bit difficult to tell whether we are winning or not, but we see substantive progress going on. You did mention what Parliament appropriates and Auditor General's reports. As an institution, we have our mandate to promote good governance, accountability, and the rule of law, and also to promote the just utilization of public resources, like you have indicated. We scrutinize those reports from the Office of the Auditor General, and we do identify some red flags and investigate and bring the responsible officers to book. And one of the measurable outcomes we have had in 2026, if we are talking about measuring our progress, it has been increasing the level of citizen awareness about the dangers of corruption, empowering them to report corruption here in the Inspectorate of Government. The IG has concluded a number of cases so far in the financial year. We looked at about 2,993 cases throughout this last year. And out of these, we had 1,249, which were cases on corruption. And then we also looked at the ombudsman cases, concluded, and we recovered some monies. People who had not been paid got themselves paid. And then we also did citizens engagement, where we engaged with citizens at different levels and took the face or presence of the institution to the grassroots. Citizens are now confident about how to approach us, about reporting cases of corruption, about being part of the war against corruption. So additionally, out of our interventions, like I've already hinted on, we recovered approximately 3 billion worth in previously denied payments and monies that have been paid to different citizens, those who have complained to us. And then in terms of public awareness, we have exceeded our target, especially when it comes to public relations, that is Monira's department. We have done advocacy, we have created awareness, we have disseminated engagements, and also sets of branded information material, which we have shared out. So we have engaged with senior local government officials, we have engaged with students, we have created integrity promotion clubs in the schools and campuses. And then we have also engaged with Parliament, members of Parliament, like I personally was present at their induction, if you will remember, and we continue to remind them about their responsibilities as leaders in this country, the responsibility to promote transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption, even as they engage with the people in their constituencies. So throughout the various awareness programs and community engagement activities, you find that citizens are now enlightened. Citizens are now knowledgeable about where to report cases of corruption, because we have equipped them with skills and also given them information so that they can report to us from an informed perspective.
Dr. Okiria, talking to the people and having them informed is good. But I can imagine the kind of appraisal performance for you, if we have lost many as institutions, is how much are you being able to recover?
Well, you realize that the previous cost of corruption report did point that we as a country lose approximately 10 trillion to corruption. So we have been on ground sensitizing the public, like I have already mentioned, against falling prey to those who allegedly sell jobs. And our efforts have yielded meaningful results because we have caused recoveries, and we have caused recoveries to a tune of some amount of money, which I don't remember, but approximately 70 billion in the last financial year. And if you look at what we have prevented and add up, we come up to over 100-something billion. But you remember that fighting corruption needs money. We've got to inject money into the institution so that our investigators are able to go to the field and do the investigations and get for us evidence which we make build on our watertight cases for prosecution.
You know,
so
if Dr. Korea, if the assertion that we lose about 10 trillion shillings through corruption and your effort recovers 100 billion, you're just taking baby steps with all respect, aren't you?
Well, if you add up the preventive as well, when we create awareness, we are also preventing. Like, look at the issue of the sale of jobs and the allegations that have come up. We have taken drastic steps to prevent that from happening. Our efforts have yielded meaningful results. And because what we have been able to receive, we have got also credible leads in the cases we are really investigating. And as a result, we have even halted recruitment in some local governments, in cities, to ensure that processes are transparent and not marred with bribery. But remember that it's quite complicated, actually, to fight corruption. You know that corruption is quite syndicate, and we have got the syndicated nature of... So even when we do our investigations, we've got to think about new and innovative ways on how to get... For instance, in a case of bribery, you have got two consenting adults, willing giver, willing recipient. Their deals are done in secret. It's really hard to detect that. How do we get to detect? When one of the suspects puts on a jacket of a whistleblower, deal gone bad, he did not get his share out of the bribery matter, he then puts on a jacket of a whistleblower and comes here, says, I'm a whistleblower, I have this to report, and in the course of investigations, you discover the whistleblower actually had a hand in the bribery case. And remember, bribery, the offense of bribery takes both the giver and the recipient. So it gets very intricate. But because of the complex nature of the cases we do here, that is the reason why we now think about new innovative ways and encourage citizens out there to report and give us bueno, give us the leads, and we take on those cases, investigate and prosecute.
There's a clear example that is mind-boggling, Dr. Okiria, and that was the recent election of the LOC1 chairpersons across Uganda. And I understand, by the way, that they are paid 10,000 shillings per month, but these LOC1 chairpersons who candidates were deploying millions of shillings in a race to be elected LOC1 chairman across Uganda in a job where you are not paid, maybe paid 10,000 a month,
yes,
or 120,000 shillings a year. Does it make sense that the whole country is corrupt to that level at LOC1 level? The amount of money deployed for our leaders who are going to lead us at the grassroots is huge for a job that is not giving them money. What do you make of that?
Well, it's quite unfortunate to see someone who is going to be carrying the village stamp putting in a lot of money for his campaigns, his or her campaigns. And that is already a red flag also, because where does this person get this kind of money from? Where is he employed? Does he have a business? Now that calls for that inquiry towards ascertaining where is this person getting this amount of money from. Then in terms of his leadership as well, If he is spending this money, is he ready to give credible leadership as a chairman, LC? Now that's another point where we see a red flag, because once people spend, just like the members of parliament, people have spent billions. People, you heard about money being given out in sacks, but as an institution, we just hear and nobody gives us, evidence. Nobody comes and brings the case. There are cases where we would investigate and take on at our own initiative. For instance, you hear somebody is celebrating a birthday of his 1-year-old son and giving the son a V8. Then you wonder, you see a son, a V8, what does the person earn? It's not commensurate. Now, this calls for new innovations. Like in the Inspectorate of Government, you've heard about the lifestyle audit. We launched this lifestyle audit. The president actually launched it, and we did the lifestyle audit guidelines, and it is helping us to be able to look at that illicit enrichment, to look at primitive expenditure, because now how does someone who is earning little suddenly get to acquire a V8 or suddenly get to acquire real estate suddenly? So the lifestyle audit helps us to look at the progressive way within which someone has been able to accumulate. So going back to the LC story, supposing he has a business or he has some funders who are putting in, so people get money from different sources. Some people are interested in his leadership.
You know, Dr. Okiria, I can imagine the members of parliament are only 400 or 500 and other leaders. But when we come to the LOC1 chairperson, the entire dashboard of the country is blinking red.
Yes.
Because this is massive. This is like us. This is like the DNA of the country. I can understand the 400 members of parliament. Who are they? They're just a few. But LSC1 chairpersons across Uganda, the dashboard of Uganda is blinking red when it comes to corruption. Where do you begin the fight? Where do you end?
Well, as an institution of the Inspectorate of Government, we appreciate these concerns, but that also opens our eyes to begin to launch deeper and look at those leadership attributes and the leadership behaviors, especially when it comes to the time of campaigns. You will realize that as an institution, we have not been able to be everywhere. We have got just 16 regional offices. But at the headquarters here, we have got the hotlines, we've got channels within which people can use to report cases to us, and if there are pointers, we swing into action and investigate them. Now, if people can see the behavior of these leaders and bring to our attention, it would be very good for us to pick interest and say, well, from the interview I had with NTV, there was this concern raised. We appreciate this concern, and we're beginning to take on this test case to investigate the manner within which this leader dispenses his leadership responsibility, and also investigate where this leader got this amount of money for this exercise during the campaigns. Yeah.
So, you know, something that is very intriguing, Dr. Okiria, is there has been an effort by the minister of local government to go across Uganda and see how public resources are being utilized. If what we are hearing is true, then you may think that in the local government sector, local government, the situation is rotten to the core. And you wonder if people are being taken to court, they're being arrested. And yet we have had all these institutions, mandated to fight graft. Sometimes you wonder, have they been there? Have they been doing their work? But even what is being done, is it right?
Well, when you look at the actions by the Minister for Local Government and the Minister of State, they have done quite a lot in opening eyes of Ugandan citizens about what is happening on the ground, and they have restored some sanity and systems. But the method has been questioned by many people, especially when there are allegations involving technical staff, the public servants, involving judgments or professional responsibility while they carry out their work, and the technical decision making. When you look at corruption and professional negligence and incompetence or abuse of office in this country, you find that sometimes it's a racket, a chain. But public officers normally hold these positions in public trust. We, like it is said in the national objectives and directive principles of state policy in the Constitution, we hold this position in public trust. But when we are got involved in those kind of corruption offenses, then we are betraying the trust of the people. That's why you see citizens up country very excited about that and following Honorable Balam everywhere he is going, because they have been disappointed, especially with service delivery. How does the ordinary citizen get to experience government? Through the services in the hospitals, infrastructure, the quality of education in the schools. And they have majored in doing the spot checks, But where proper investigations establishes these allegations they are making against it, then we need proper legal procedures and also professional disciplinary action to be taken against the culprits. Not just to act on rumors that such and such a thing is happening, then I go and sanction and say arrest. We arrest when we have been able to establish.
In your first submission, you say they are doing a good job, commendable job.
Creating awareness,
creating awareness, yes. And I mean, a lot of doubt is being unearthed, and the people seem to be happy, and they are following the Honorable Barugahari. But what does that say about your own docket and your own work?
Well, for me, I believe in complementarity of our work. Like you started, we have several institutions in the fight against corruption. We have policies, we have the legal framework. Several institutions. We have said the fight against corruption cannot be left to just one institution. It's everybody's fight. That's why we say all citizens should own the war against corruption. So if the Minister for Local Government has gone out of his way and is doing the spot checks, he's identifying the areas where there are weaknesses, I think he's opening our eyes to areas where we should pick interest and investigate and bring the culprits to book, like he has ordered and sanctioned some interdictions. But it's not stopping there. Some of those cases are ending up here. Like when they go to the field, they are going with a technical person, either from State House and Corruption Unit, they're either taking a technical person from the Inspectorate of Government, and that technical person is the one who identifies the corruption issues and brings to our attention, and then we launch deeper, we delve into the investigation. Because accountability should be based on actual responsibility, and not only responsibility, but also authority of the institution. Like we have the mandate as the Inspectorate of Government to handle those cases of corruption, to investigate, to prosecute. So the minister in his findings sends to us, and then we investigate deeper, we get facts. If they are not, which they do not warrant prosecution, we do administrative action. If they don't warrant that, we then,
the political elite, before they are given the mandate to lead, Dr. Okiria, if you follow the campaigns, a lot of electoral malpractice, there's bravery, there's intimidation, sometimes even death. And I wonder if the people who are given the mandate to lead and they have gone through a process that is corrupting itself have the moral authority to be able to speak about matters of graft and integrity, can they?
Well, that is subject to debate. It takes to somebody's character and personality. If I'm to talk about integrity and I do not demonstrate integrity out there, then I will be a leader of questionable character. But going back to those issues, I think there is need. We should talk about
be seeing a lot of leaders with questionable character in high offices, aren't you?
Well, we hear, but if the issues are brought to us and say these are the pointers, what makes him have questionable character? He was involved in this, and that. That's why I'm saying there is need for technical due process. Allegations involving public officials or leaders should be subjected to technical assessment and scrutiny and further investigations. And if it is established that this person was actually involved in these acts of corruption, then the person should be brought to book, sanctioned, prosecuted, so that they answer. Because remember, much as you investigate a person, the person also has his rights. An inquiry is not a conviction in itself. So a fair hearing and individual accountability is also very, very important, because accountability processes we have in our institution and in our country should be a process that upholds natural justice. Is there natural justice? Is the person given a fair hearing? Or we're just hearing from one side and arresting the person and throwing him behind bars? I think we need to go through the natural due process and give these people the right to fair hearing as well. And where there is credible evidence established against such persons, then appropriate and decisive action should take place to ensure that these people are brought to book.
I wonder where you can run to put things right, because when you look at, for example, the Afrobarometer survey and where corruption indices are most, where they are prevalent most, you find the institutions you're supposed to work with. There is a lot of allegation against the police, a lot of allegation against the judiciary, and yet
a lot of allegations against the IG as well.
Yes.
And we believe that in every basket
Yes.
of fruits, there are some rotten apples,
But
there are some rotten mangoes. So as the heads of institution, we take it upon ourselves to ensure that we clean our institution. We do in-house cleaning. Where it has been established that an individual or a member of staff is involved in acts of corruption, we take disciplinary measures.
You know, it is not
against
just
that.
a rotten apple in a basket. The entire basket is rotten when you look at some of these reports. So I'm wondering if the police is facing allegations of graft of that nature, and the judiciary, and yet these are the institutions that are supposed to help you as the office of the ombudsman to fight corruption. I'm like, where does Dr. Okiria and that team even go?
Well, you cannot generalize and say the entire judiciary is corrupt.
That's what I'm
or the
saying,
entire
allegations
police.
of judiciary.
Well, they're just allegations,
Yes.
but we have got people of integrity in those institutions. And it is those people of integrity whose strength we rely on, especially when we're handling complex matters like now the high-profile cases coming to our institution. So it is those individuals with integrity who help handle, and they do a very good job, a very good job. We have seen watertight cases properly investigated, and we are ready to
If
proceed.
we are losing 10 trillion through corrupt tendencies, I can imagine the corrupt can deploy the same money to insulate themselves. It must be difficult to fight individuals with corrupt tendencies who are highly loaded, who have a lot of money, because that money will create a firewall around them,
Yes,
and you can't reach them.
But also when you look at that 10 trillion, it's both overt and covert. The corruption which can be seen and the corruption which cannot be seen because it's prevented. So when we look at 10 trillion, it is the money someone claims for instance, when he did not go to class to teach. The teacher is getting the paycheck and he has absconded from duty, or the civil servant out there has not been. So for us as an institution, for us, we basically create awareness in a bid to restore the system, in a bid to restore sanity. Now, what Honorable Balam is doing is actually enhancing our work. When we go now to do on-spot checks, we'll get a different report because someone has already been there. Attendance to duty. If I went to Katakwi on a Friday, I will find people in their offices because everybody's on alert that they are watching and marking what we are doing. Previously, you go on a Friday, you find offices empty, everybody is going to eat sugarcane and mchomo in Ochoromongin market. But you know, we appreciate the concerns, especially against the government institutions. Sometimes we are blamed for delayed investigations, but the delays are not intended. They're justifiable. You find that the institution is also having challenges with manpower. We have limited staff. We have to cut the coat according to the cloth. So we have to think about new innovative methods in order to come up with results or produce output. Corruption investigations are quite sensitive as well because corruption itself has many layers that have to be unearthed to enable us have evidence beyond reasonable doubt and have a watertight case for prosecution so that we can present in courts and have secure convictions. Otherwise, it will be useless for us to take weak cases and then people appealing and challenging and court it throwing them out.
As you try to look for the big fish, the people who probably are handling billions of money, and you want to follow that money, make sure it is used for the intended purpose. Are you mindful about corruption at the lowest level. Because for me, that scares me because it gets into the DNA of the country. You know, for example, when you look back, if there was a parish chief, he's coming to visit in Ikenjo or in Katakwi, or a schools inspector is coming to inspect, that person would be given a lot of respect and people would prepare themselves. A Gombora chief, a Muruka chief coming at your village to inspect, you know, people would put things proper. And that is the governance at the lowest level. But right now, you even wonder whether there's a schools inspector, whether there's a parish Muruka chief, whether there's a Gombora chief who's doing their stuff. Because at that level, if you are able to clean it, then you know that we have a country that is perhaps having a soul of integrity.
Well, as an institution of the Inspectorate of Government, corruption is all corruption, big or small, high profile, low profile, the ones you're talking about of the Gombolola or sub-county chiefs who are eating the PDM money, that is all corruption. We give attention to all. But now when you look at the normal activities, when it comes to investigating, we give priority because of the amount of money involved in the high profile ones. You'll find that we are building brigades or teams to give attention to the high profile cases, which basically sometimes are continuing. The focus is on transitioning from reactive to the complaints-driven approach to intelligence-led interventions. And this also involves the risk-based investigations, which helps us also to anchor onto the prosecution model, where we have the prosecutor working with the investigator, the prosecutor giving the investigator leads and what kind of evidence would require in court. Now, this model basically has helped us reduce the turnaround time and improve the conviction rate. So we handle both the big fish and the small fish, because corruption is all corruption. Like in the Bible, all sin is sin. You cannot go and begin telling God that, you see me, I committed a small sin here, you forgive me quickly, or I committed this big sin, please be considerate of ABCD. All corruption is corruption, big or small. Even the small ones, just like the Mukene, can fill sacks and sacks. Sometimes the small ones, we get more quicker
So we're not talking about the big fish. I can imagine your businesses must be dangerous, because if you're stepping on the toes of people who are, you know, probably dipping their hands on big monies, public resources, they will be fighting back.
Yes, corruption fights back, but as the people on the lead, because the Inspectorate of Government is a lead anti-corruption agency, we build thick skin over time. Like Kamara, me, I'm now in my second Chisanja. If I survived the first one, then the second one should give me more confidence that Chisoboka, you can be able to touch on the big fish and be able to produce tangible results. If you're patriotic and you have your country at heart, you will do anything to ensure that you're making a positive, significant contribution in fighting this corruption.
How are you using, you know, cyber tools for you to be able to fight corruption? Because I can imagine with the increase of artificial intelligence and cyber crimes, the corrupt are getting sophisticated. Are you equally following them, upping your game every day? Because
yes,
I remember there was an issue, I think, in the Ministry of Finance of a haze of about 60 billion, and then there was a court case. But when you look at that, it's technical, it's high level, it's sophisticated.
Well, we are on the digital journey as the Inspectorate of Government. We have gone digital. We have trained our staff, and others are still going on with training to ensure that we are able to do the cyber kind of investigations. But we also have partnerships and strategic alliances with other anti-corruption agencies in the region, in Africa, and internationally, where sometimes we have to pick on best practice and see if something happened in Malaysia, can we borrow this approach and use it here? And then within the region, we have got the Yaka, Arinia, we do peer-to-peer, we see what has been successful in Kenya, how can we follow this model in order to achieve this? But going back to this sophisticated cyber-related, we already adopt those. We have got even declarations of assets, incomes, and liabilities is now done digitally. And that minimizes the face-to-face interactions out there. If you tell people to apply for jobs and they're applying online, they cannot pay a bribe to the computer to ensure that they pass their competence tests or the aptitude tests. So when we go online and go digital, I think it will minimize the instances of corruption. But the sophisticated corruption, yes, we are there. We have partnership and strategic alliances with other anti-corruption agencies. For instance, the Financial Intelligence Authority. We are now looking at prosecuting more cases to do with money laundering, and we get information. We can get information from URA, we can get information from URSB and other agencies, which basically help us to prepare our cases for prosecution. So when I'm investigating a matter involving money laundering, the financial institutions readily avail the evidence. We order bank inspection orders, we get information, we are able to look at what it is people think they can do in the cyberspace. We're able to see that and be able to quickly detect and be able to fix.
Through the leadership code, if you want public officials to declare their wealth and their assets, and some of them do, and actually I've read somehow you say people are complying almost 80% in declaring their wealth and the assets. But I'm wondering, what capacity do you have for verification of the information they've given you?
Well, when it comes to declarations, we do the e-verifications first, where the system generated verification happens, and we look at the point as the red flags. So we are able to pick on those red flags and do the physical verifications, where the technical teams have to go to the field and be able to do the verifications and get the actuals. If you said you had 7 houses, where are they? If you said you had this, where is that property? So when we do those verifications, then the red flags from those then triggers the investigation, and the report is prepared and submitted to the Leadership Code Tribunal. So if I come up with a report and say out of 30,000 public officers, 27 of them declared, and the other number did not declare, then those are the ones we do verify, and then we subject them to the Leadership Code Tribunal. But after a sieving, because there are so many factors which basically hindered some of the public officials from declaring access to internet. Some of them did not have smartphones. Others, the district headquarters or sub-county headquarters were far off from them, and they could not reach in time. And there are several other challenges. So the focal point persons could not be able to reach them.
But it's also possible to put ill-gotten wealth in the names of their friends and relatives and girlfriends and boyfriends.
Yes,
and be able to hide it
as
beyond
an
your
institution,
reach.
As an institution, we're able to detect that. Like we have cases of someone putting property in the names of a shamba boy, but he is paying utility bills, he is paying power, water, or a company, he is paying, and then when you do the verifications, you see that this property is in the names of X. But how comes it is Y paying ABCD? And that is how we narrow it out and be able to get them and bring them to book. And these matters are sent to the Leadership Code Tribunal.
And for those who have not been able to declare, what has happened to them?
Those who have not been able to declare, we also look at the circumstances under which they are not able to declare. Like some people are bedridden, they've traveled, they're undergoing treatment. Some people did not have internet. Some people were not trained or prepared in time. So we look at those circumstances, we sieve through and send to the Leadership Code Tribunal. But there are also irresponsible leaders and public officials out there who just neglect to declare. Then those are prosecuted.
I remember there was one of the predecessors who said the corrupt have a tendency of hiding behind the highest office in the land. And so you can touch them, you can reach them.
Well, that was her individual perspective. The corrupt, much as they can hide, If we launch deeper, we're able to fish them out. If we launch deeper, we're able to fish them out. We get the leads, the links. So they cannot hide behind their relatives, behind those examples I've given you, like the Shamba boy, or we're able to fish them out because we have just said we are going E. For instance, when we do the declarations, well, we don't have delays because after the exercise, I told you we embark on verifications. Now, during that time of verifications, the system gives us a red flags and we're able to fish those out. Even in these other high profile cases we do, some people hide or some people want to use the junior staff and be able to, cause them to move things and change transfer money into their names or something like that. But now, if we go digital, we are able to see that who transacted how much money and what time, and we see how the money moved from one individual to another. It is a bit complicated where it is cash transactions, where someone is bringing cash and giving you
I
cash.
want you to paint for us a scenario because I can see there are very many institutions mandated to fight graft, including this very office that you lead, but also the State House Anti-Corruption Agency. There is, of course, the police, CID. There is, I think, also even the civil society. There's Anti-Corruption Coalition Uganda.
Yes.
And I'm imagining the money that is deployed in all these institutions, including the private one, to fight corruption, vis-a-vis the money that you are able to recover. Are we making money on that investment of the institutions we have? Or we are making a loss every year?
Like I said in the beginning, we need money to find this money. We inject in money. Like, for instance, if I'm investigating a case, my investigators need vehicles and fuel to be able to reach. And the amount of money we spend in the investigation may not probably help us recover what it is we are investigating if we look at recovery. But if you look at the process of cleaning, if we look at the perspective of cleaning institutions, cleaning our country of corruption, we've got to take all approaches. And if we have several of these institutions...
It appears we're injecting so much money in the fight against corruption and getting so little in terms of recovery. And that is year after year.
Corruption is top on the agenda. We've got to cause this mindset change in order to feel this significant impact. And it is an investment. If you see what other countries are doing internationally, you will find that here in the country, we are probably just playing. Because you find that to avoid the unnecessary delays, because you remember the corruption denies the ordinary citizen access to services, to service delivery on time. We handle several cases where public officials deliberately delay. Now, handling those cases require money. If I'm telling you I'm chasing this 9 billion case, I will need money for the investigators to move from this place or canvass the country. By the time you add up, you may find that probably we've spent more than what it is we are looking for. So we basically have to do preventive as well. Like, you realize that we have interdicted a number of people, we have interdicted some officials, we've also recommended disciplinary action. If somebody stay in office is going to continuously cause financial loss, then taking that person out of the office and finding another person of integrity to occupy that position, I think it's a better way to go. So corruption, I think, needs a holistic approach where you have talked about institutions, but institutions really, in terms of complementarity, they help. We, in the fight against corruption, have the interagency forum where we meet, we share information, we avoid duplicity. Sometimes we do joint investigations and joint inspections as well, but in our forums, we get to know what is CID doing, where have they reached? What is SHAKU doing, where have they reached? Who is going to prosecute? Is it the IG or it's DPP? So we get to update each other so that we don't waste resources on investigating what another person is investigating. Some people have said too many cooks spoil food. Yes, too many cooks can spoil the soup. But if these cooks sit together, then I will know that Patricia Kamara added salt, me I can put Royco, the other person is going to bring kachumbari and make the soup even better. So when we complement each other, then we come out stronger, we come out smarter. But if we leave it to just one institution, then that is where we go wrong. The institution will get overwhelmed. Like now, we shouldn't go into lamentations because we have so many institutions and agencies. And now, the agenda for this government, number one, is fighting corruption. And corruption has been like a song now. Everybody's being reminded about their responsibility to fight corruption. And that is why His Excellency, the President, did remind the leaders that this Chisanja is the Chisanja Hakuna Kulala, Chisanja of no sleep, and Chisanja of zero tolerance to corruption. That is probably the reason why you see most of the leaders are talking about corruption. We are on the preventive move. We are trying to build integrity promotion clubs. You are saying, you youth, you are the ambassadors of integrity. How can we get a better generation which is promoting more of transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption rather than just sitting back and lamenting? We want everybody to be involved and embrace this war against corruption.
I can imagine the head of state mean as well, and he's at pains to see the kind of corruption that is happening. Because we had the head of state even had the work against corruption. If I have a president reaching the level of trying to express himself in the manner that he did, you can actually see that maybe the lieutenants, the people below him, have let him down big time.
I agree with you to some extent. There are leaders out there who have not played their role, who have not embraced their responsibilities fully. So it's like a time to make this wake-up call that if you're in a leadership position, it is not a privilege, it's a responsibility. You owe this country a duty to fulfill your obligations and fight against this corruption. This whole thing of being there and not supervising, or being there and swelling around and enjoying the comforts of the leadership positions is out. We've got to embrace full responsibility and get to remind the citizens out there that they also have a role to play to get rid of corruption. Because at the end of the day, the thing even they call casimo, that, hey, I've gotten a service here in this hospital, let me give the nurse a tip. Now, those are the small little actions that fuel this whole thing of bribery. Another time, the nurse will refuse to treat you because you have not yet given him a tip. So it is very important that we embrace this and take it as a holistic approach and ensure that everybody gets to own the war against corruption and makes their contribution. As the institution of the Inspectorate of Government, for us, we are determined in the new leadership, we are determined to move, to be a game changer in the fight against corruption. How are we going to do this? Through the new innovations I have shared. We've got the lifestyle audit. We are giving priority to the high-profile cases, and then also we are pushing the war against corruption to the people. We are engaging them in anti-corruption brigades, and then we want people to bring these issues out so that we get answers, so that we take action, so that we are able to come up with proper remedies and people get to feel and know that the institution is working and working positively. And this will change this whole corruption perception index, because now the citizens will know what we are doing and how we are doing it, because we are doing it together. The citizens will know that, hey, the Inspectorate of Government has prosecuted this number of people for corruption-related offenses. The citizens will get to know that we have been able to sensitize and move in different directions, and they will basically embrace that and be happy about those actions.
Dr. Patricia Okiria, I want to thank you so much. As we conclude, are you very hopeful and optimistic that the fight against corruption, graft, and abuse of office is being won in Uganda?
To some extent, we are, although I'm not very keen at concluding this conversation because I feel we are just in the beginning of it. The fight against corruption is a continuous journey. And I know that progressively, with the realization of these issues of integrity, accountability, I know that this fight can be won if we leaders are deliberate, if we leaders are purposeful and intentional about what our leadership responsibility is. we are able to win this war against corruption. For us as the Inspectorate of Government, we, like I said, want to promote a whole of government approach through measuring transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption, measures across ministries, departments, and agencies and local government, and also to accelerate the digital transformation by replacing the manual processes with these digital integrated automatic systems so that the face-to-face approach is minimized. And then we would also like to thank the permanent secretary, the PSST Finance, for embracing the TAC strategy which we came up with as the Inspectorate of Government, because the TAC strategy is a transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption strategy. He has made it a cross-cutting issue in all ministries, departments, and agencies, and even pointed it out in the second budget call circular, and we're able to look, is this institution TAC compliant? Do they have their own embedded anti-corruption measures? Are we able to go and monitor and do oversight and check that this institution is compliant? So for us, we will implement certain key interventions in our work in order to reinforce this broad priority.
Okay, hold on to your point there, Dr. Okiria, because you started something very important. That's the automated platforms,
yes,
especially for payment. I want to take a very quick break, and when we come back, maybe we'll dig deep into only that. Because if you remove, I suppose, the human handling of money,
yes,
perhaps maybe you can say we're getting there.
Yes.
We'll be right back. Back, you're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara, and my guest tonight is Dr. Patricia Ochan Okiria, Deputy Inspector General of Government, and we're discussing matters of accountability or enforcing accountability with the question, is the war on corruption being won? I know now you have deployed digital tools, especially the payment system is now automated. So how has that changed the game? Or how is it changing the game?
Well, when we use the digital tools in the war against corruption, you find that we minimize the face-to-face interactions where a human being faces another human being and can ask for a bribe or a tip. So we minimize that. But we know that it will go a long way. Like for instance, if you look at immigration, the passport office, now when you apply online, you can't meet the passport officers and pay them a bribe to give you your passport quickly or to process yours faster. So when it is digital, it is basically promoting efficiency, effectiveness, and also minimizing the instances of corruption. And then I had also said we're going to do the institutionalized, intelligence-led, prosecution-driven investigations, where investigators are moving together with the prosecutors, and then we are deploying the AI powered leadership code verifications, which I did explain, where we do the e-verifications. We see the red flags, and the red flags is what we pick on for the actual physical verifications. Then as an institution of the Inspectorate of Government, we also want to scale up asset tracing and recovery mechanisms. We have some assets which we are going to be disposing of as the Inspectorate of Government, but we are empowering the technical team to do the tracing and recovery more. After the convictions, there are people who have unexplained wealth. We need to get that into our asset register as well. Then we want to implement a transformative anti-corruption education and behavior change program, and this will enhance our mindset change we are talking about, where we are creating awareness, we're empowering the people, and the people know about corruption, they're equipped, they can basically report to us from an informed perspective. And then we want to build a specialized human capital to handle complex corruption cases. How are we doing this? We are looking at skills, building skills like people who can do the handwriting thing, the handwriting experts, the people who can do the other cyber investigations and be able to follow and see where the money went and when it went and so on. And then we want to also operationalize a results-based M&E and performance management framework here in the Inspectorate
There's some
of
people
Government.
who do, you know, fear to report and fear for retaliation. They can have information, but they're like, if I tell the IG this, I mean, my life will be in danger. How would you protect the whistleblower?
Well, we have got the Whistleblower Protection Act. The spirit behind the Whistleblower Protection Act is to encourage the ordinary person out there to come up as a whistleblower and report corruption cases to the Inspectorate of Government. And when we investigate, the proceeds, 5% of the proceeds is given to this whistleblower. But we have got a challenge, a gap in the legal framework, in that we have the absence of the civil asset recovery law and the witness protection law, because the whistleblower sometimes volunteers to be a state witness and give evidence in court. So this continues to affect the execution of our mandate. How does it do so? Because when you look at the absence of laws, for instance, to support the non-conviction based asset recovery, then that automatically affects the recovery of assets from the corrupt officials, because we have to wait a long time for the courts to process the conviction before the stolen assets can be recovered. Then in terms of protecting the whistleblower, we do as much to ensure that we shield these people. But there are times when they go and talk for themselves. Yeah, I reported Patricia Kamara to the Inspectorate of Government. They're going to deal with him in his Marwa joint. And then, but also, we have had complaints that even within the institution, when people report, there are some officers who give that information the other side, and yet corruption is quite risky. This exposes the whistleblower to suffering, to victimization, and so on. And that is why we are calling upon citizens not to blow their own covers. And then we are also encouraging our staff, because now we take, all the staff take swear an oath of secrecy. You do not delve or let this information out there. But also in terms of the gap in the legal framework, we would like the finalization and implementation of the enabling law, and this is the witness protection law and the civil asset recovery law, because these two will go a long way in helping this institution to be able to recover and be able to get the assets.
There's something the inspectors has found, especially in the recruitment study,
Yes.
that applicants were asked for an estimated 78 billion in bribes.
In recruitment.
In recruitment. That is worrying. Isn't it?
It's worrying. Quite unfortunate. But well, when you look at recruitment again, during our strategic engagements, we have engaged with political leaders about these allegations against them. We actually did conduct a study, a whole study on District Service Commission and recruitments. We have told the political leaders that they must never compromise when it comes to recruitment systems or even influence the processes, because they are the same people who are supposed to be promoting transparency and accountability and the rule of law. So yes, those isolated cases are there, but what I can assure you as the Inspectorate of Government is that Ugandans watching us here is that we are taking serious action against leaders who influence recruitment processes. Like I said earlier, that we have even halted some recruitment processes in Public Service Commission. We have halted recruitment processes in District Service Commission when we receive those allegations, when we investigate and be able to establish the facts. But we encourage citizens to continue reporting such cases to us.
We have since found that people are paying bribes of from around 3 million shillings for a job up to 40 and 50 million shillings to get a job. The situation is that dire.
Yes, there is like, we had also that there is like a menu where if you want to be a human resource manager, you pay 10 million. If you want to be this, you pay this. If you want to be this, you pay that. We have had isolated cases from some districts where someone has actually paid, but when the list is out, he's missing on the list, and he starts lamenting, oh, the chairman. But remember what I said.
How do you handle
The
such a case?
offense of bribery, bribery is a corruption offense. Bribery catches both the giver and the recipient. Now, if this giver gets the job, he doesn't report. But when he doesn't get the job, that's when he comes out to report. But usually, how do we get then to bring these issues to book? If the transaction was done on mobile money, because we want proof of payment of that 10 million to the chairman or his agent. So when we get that proof, then we are able to pick these persons and take them for prosecution. There is also an issue of people now forging academic papers. People are in NASA busy forging academic papers instead of going to study in universities and get the qualifications. So we are fishing those out also one by one and subjecting them to prosecution, because forgery is both a crime and also an anti-corruption offense. You're causing financial loss. 15 years they're paying you as a nurse, and you're treating people I don't know with what and how, but you're getting the salary a medical person should be getting, and yet you don't have the qualifications. So we basically pick these people out and have them prosecuted. And if there's recovery, we recover. If what they have paid you for 15 years when you are holding out to be a nurse or whichever profession it is.
Afrobarometer's July 2026 Uganda findings report that among citizens who sought medical care, 41% said they paid a bribe to obtain treatment. At the same time, 65% said obtaining medical care was difficult. To them, health was the leading priority for government action, cited by over 51% of the people. This, I'm quoting the Afrobarometer survey.
Well, I don't know Afrobarometer, and I don't know where they come from, but one thing I know is that...
You disagree this?
No, I'm not disagreeing with their report either. But one thing I know is that as a government institution, we have a mandate. We have a mandate to fight against corruption and ensure that there is service delivery. Even us, when we do our own spot checks, independent checks like the institution of the Inspectorate of Government, we find there are questions about service delivery. Healthcare, people are absconding from duty, patients are waiting, nurses are not there, they have brought babies for vaccination, and people are not there to do that. And even the issue of bribery, we have heard about that, and we have got also reports. But the IG is moving from case-by-case resolution of ombudsman-related complaints to systemic interventions. That's why we have even instituted systemic studies that address root causes of maladministration, while performance management will shift from output-based reporting to outcome-oriented results. So within the Ombudsman Directorate, we get to engage. Sometimes we even do boardroom sessions. Like you might have heard, we engage with the Cancer Institute, where we call the leadership and management for a boardroom session to resolve some of the complaints that were coming from that direction. In addition, the IG is also promoting the whole of government approach through mainstreaming what I was talking about, the transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption measures across ministries, departments, and agencies in order to accelerate the digital transformation by replacing the manual processes with integrated automated systems. When we go to the automated systems, then we minimize the face-to-face, where the nurse cannot ask directly for a bribe from this person and so on. We would like to basically encourage people to go digital, but when it comes to service delivery, sometimes you have got to interface with the doctor. The doctor will not give you e-treatment. The doctor has got to touch you and examine you. And so, but when we go on sensitizing people about the accountability, about transparency, about service with integrity, about service with a touch of humility, then everybody will think about service delivery and have a heart for the nation. When you have a heart for your nation, you don't let its citizens suffer.
If I can touch a little bit again on the Afrobarometer survey, 3 out of 4 citizens who sought police assistance reported paying a bribe. 3 out of 4. While more than 4 in 10 who sought medical care reported doing the same. And we're not talking about, these are ordinary Ugandans at the lowest level of our society. And 3 out of 4, the situation can never be dire than that.
Yes, and as the Inspectorate of Government, recently we've been confronted with the issue of bribery, Soroti Moroto Highway, where they think government is far, and the police officers were busy taking bribes, Mbale Soroti Highway, and the passengers observe and they are able to report. Some even take pictures and video clips and send to us. Well, other people will say those are small monies. The traffic officer is asking for 2,000 or Lukumi. There are billions being wasted elsewhere in government institutions. Why don't you focus on that? But like I said, corruption is all corruption. That small bribe is basically affecting service delivery in that docket. Even the big one is affecting service delivery in its own way. So I think we need to have the holistic approach and basically deal with these issues and take positive the recommendations of Afrobarometer and the findings therein. Because even us, when we do ours, we come up with almost the same findings. Like the issue of sale of jobs. It has been, Ugandans have been lamenting about this. In every radio talk show or TV talk show, people have called and asked, but what are you doing about this? People are selling jobs here. The chief administrative officer has done ABCD. We just take the details and follow up. We say, let our Soroti regional office go and check this issue and report back. We take action in different ways. But whatever it is we do, we move intentionally and purposefully to ensure that we make a positive contribution. That is why I was telling you, as the Inspectorate of Government, we are promoting the whole of government approach, where we have this stack mainstreamed and all ministries, departments, and agencies having their own inbuilt strategies to deal with the challenge of corruption in those institutions.
How do we compare in the fight against corruption with our peers in the region?
Pardon?
How do we compare in this fight with other
Against
countries in the
corruption?
region? Yeah.
Well, as a country, we are doing pretty well.
Are we?
Yes, we are, because when you look at some of our policies and laws, they have benchmarked and taken and implemented in their country. For us, we're having a challenge when it comes to enforcement or applying some of these laws or getting to test some of these laws fully.
But the
Other
laws and
countries
policies, Dr. Okiria, are as good as when they are enforced. It's not a
Yes.
good law or policy if it has not been enforced. Never, it isn't.
But what I was telling is that we are doing pretty well, and even when we go for those regional meetings, we are really held in high esteem. We have just been the president of the IACA, East African Anti-Corruption Agencies. We've just handed over to Kenya, and we held that position for 3 years. And we are president of the IOMA, that is the Association of Ombudsman Affairs in Africa. At the moment, we are on the lead. I am the vice president of the Common Position on Asset Recovery in Africa within the African Union, AUABC. So when we are given such responsibilities, we see that we are held in high esteem. Why? Because they look at some of the approaches we are taking in the war against corruption. They look at our reports. They come here to benchmark. And even when we take part in those meetings, hey, we are like celebrities. And I'm like, hey, but if we could go a step further, if we could launch deeper, it gives us more morale and courage to even invigorate the fight against corruption and take it to another level. So we are doing pretty well. Of course, there are Ugandans here who are basically like pouring cold water on us, saying we're not doing enough, the institution is not being felt. But Patrick, us here within the institution, most of the things we do, by they are not for the media. We do quite a lot. Personally, if I gave you a description of how my day starts, or for my colleagues, you will go marveled and say, hey, these guys, they work up to this time, they do all this. It is a lot of work, a lot of work. Like right now as I talk, we have got so many anti-corruption brigades and teams moving around looking for information. There are people preparing to go to court for prosecutions. There are people who are basically there are people who are doing the strategic studies.
I want to know what your brigades have been able to find. For example, in the primary education system, if you look at the children who are enrolled in primary one, almost like 1.8 million or thereabout. But the children who sit for PLE probably are half the number. And I'm always asking myself, where do these Ugandan children go? Are they telling us a lie? They actually don't enroll because now you cannot manufacture the PLE results?
When you go to the education sector, they also have their own challenges. For instance, the school dropouts, especially in the countryside. For instance, if you look at Karamoja region, there are people who go to school only because there is food there. But when there is no food, they don't go to school at all. So there is a lot that needs to be done to encourage children to go to school. Then the girl child, when they're experiencing body changes, they're in their periods, they don't go to school at all, and some of them drop out and get into early child marriage and so on. But there are issues to do with this whole enrollment as well. Like some of the findings in the recent exercise by the Minister for Local Government, where statistics are differing. Statistics are different. What the head teacher has pinned on the wall as the number of students is not actual. When you do a head count, yes, is not actual. So there are integrity, accountability issues which need to be confronted. And as leaders, we have got to be purposeful and intentional. And this should go down to the grassroots, like you said earlier on. We've got, first of all, to step up our supervision responsibility. Do the district education officers do their work? Who supervises the district education officer? The police officer. Who is policing the police? Who is policing the police to ensure that these briberies and whatnot?
So in the case of school, so the number in the register is talking something different, and the head count something different.
But
there is somebody getting something called capitation grant for every individual.
Now that is what we need to launch deeper to find out how much then is the school getting for capitation grant. Is the capitation grant commensurate to the number? So that is the reason why I'm saying we need to step up actual supervision. Does the district education officer know his responsibility? Or someone is just dropping in a relative to take up that responsibility? That is the reason why we need to take a deliberate action to dismiss, to interdict, to suspend people who do not measure up to the expectations of that institution. Because you have heard, it is Chisanja Hakuna Kulala. Previously we had Hakuna Mchezo. Now the terminology has changed. So I think we need to be deliberate. Even as when we do the on spot, if the Minister for Local Government gives me that information, I should be able to launch deeper, get the necessary facts, and have the culprits prosecuted if they're inflating figures in order to get a lot more from the capitation grant. So that is information which needs to be further investigated, yes.
I want to thank you so much, Dr. Patricia Okiria. What's going to be your concluding remark on the show tonight?
Well, as I conclude, though I didn't want to conclude, as I conclude, yes. I think it's very important for us to call upon the viewers, call upon citizens to support the institution of the Inspectorate of Government and other institutions in the war against corruption. Let's be as patriotic and be able to name and shame and be able to report the cases, because when we take this war against corruption as a responsibility, we'll be able to register significant impact and will cause the mindset change which we have been preaching about. Yes. Thank you very much.
Dr. Patricia Okiria, Deputy Inspector General of Government, I want to thank you so much for the time you have given us, for the value you have added on our platform, and also for the continuation you're doing in terms of enlightening the people, sensitizing them on the matters of accountability. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Good night, and God bless Uganda.